What up, what up? Back again with another Pop Punk Pod, episode 2. This week we're doing Created from Filth and Dust by Lilith Czar. Lilith Czar is her name was Juliet Sims. That's her birth name. I believe she grew up in Florida. And then she started a band called Automatic Love Letter. That band went from the early 10s, like late 2000s, early 10s. I love that band. Automatic Love Letter rocks. It was just like a perfect female vocalist pop punk band back in the MySpace days. I loved it. Juliet was also, I believe she was on season 2 of The Voice, and I believe she was runner-up. I love her as a singer. She's actually my favorite female vocalist of all time. But she recently, back in 2020, I believe, totally changed her image, the way she looks, her name. I don't know if she legally changed her name to Lilith Czar, but I know that's the name she goes by with her music, as well as her family calls her that, I believe. And so that's just who she is now. So she's had to kind of changed her name and her identity for a lot of different reasons she's mentioned in podcasts, but she's just a pretty big female icon, I think, in the pop punk realm. A lot of people love Hayley Williams, which is valid, but I think that Juliet Sims / Lilith Czar is very slept on. She's insane as a vocalist and as a poet, as a writer, as a lyricist. Those are all the same words, but yeah, she's insane as a musician. I love her so much. So yeah, this week we're doing Created from Filth and Dust by Lilith Czar. Sometimes it's hard to say her name. It's got too many L's. Lilith Czar. Which means, she said it once, it relates to having power, like kings or emperors or other high and mighty beings, is kind of the vibe taken from there. Lilith is, who was it? She fell before Adam, I think, or something. She was previous to Eve. Crap, I should have read up on this before I started, but I don't know much about Lilith, but I know she was the precursor to Eve, I believe, or something like that. She was the first woman on Earth or something. Anyway, I'm not sure. But yeah, that's what she takes that name from there. And then Czar means king, emperor of power, person of high power. Anyway, so that's kind of what the name symbolizes, which is fitting for her because the whole album is incredible in regards to femininity, power, women's rights. Just she's a powerhouse. I love everything that she stands for and everything that she does musician wise, and just being a role model for girls, especially in the rock scene. This album is the vibe is very hard rock, I guess I would say. Less pop punk, but more just gritty, dirty rock. So yeah, let's get into it. Track 1 is called Intro Poem, and this track is literally, there's no singing. It's just a literal intro. It's a poem she wrote, and she speaks, and I'm trying to remember what she says. I don't think I actually know it word for word. I know there's another poem in the album that actually was taken out for the album on 100 Little Deaths. That one I know all the words to, but I don't know. Anyway, it's cool how this first track leads into the second track, Feed My Chaos, but the way that it links together is insane. It blew my mind when she did it. At the end, she says, created from filth, and then she screams dust, and it feeds into the next song, but it's like a guttural scream. It's insane. I mean, Lilith has been known, her voice is very raspy, and she has a very big voice, and she has a lot of power. But I have never heard her produce this much effort and just absolute chest power with this scream that she does, linking these two songs. It when I first heard it, I was like, my brains blew out of my head. It was freaking insane. She, again, we already know Juliet is a powerhouse. She has always been, but this new Lilith, she like pulled something out of her that it just, I'd never heard from her before, and it's absolutely amazing. It's insane. Feed My Chaos 2 is also, I think it's one of the more like hard rocky tracks. I mean, the whole album is very much rock and roll, but there's a lot of like screechy and waily guitars in this track, and also like throughout the album, which I really, really like. I like how because she's mentioned before that she grew up with a lot of that type of music, just like old rock music. And so I love how she put that in her own album as this new being. And I love the sound of it. Track 3 is called King. This was one of the singles. This song, I think, just ties the entire concept of the album together. One of my favorite lines is, actually my favorite line in this album is, "Who's to say a woman can't think with her dick?" Insane. That's an insane line. When I first heard it, I was like, yo, let's go. It's so perfect, because the whole song talks about just women not having as many rights as men, and just women in history and just in her life, what she's seen, that women have always just kind of been seen as inferior to men, and how her identity now like challenges this and addresses that viewpoint that men have more power than women. And also she mentions in the rock scene, like in the scene that she grew up with, how there are, think about it, the rock genre, there are a lot of male-led bands. There's not a whole lot of female vocalists or, guitarists. Just that the female presence is not as much represented as there is men in just the music scene in general, but specifically to rock music, I would think. Kind of more the pop punk or emo realm that she kind of grew up with and grew up on, like with her band Automatic Love Letter. She did Warped Tour, I believe. She was on a lot of other tours with those similar veined bands. Yeah, so this song in particular, I think, kind of sums up her entire identity, just putting it out there and just saying, like, if it's a man's world, I'm going to be king. Like, I'm not doing queen, I'm not being princess, like, I am a king. I, as a woman, have just as much power as a man does, which I love. Oh, dude, she, on The Voice, she covered, what's that song? It's called A Man's World. If it's a man's world, it's a man's world, but it would be nothing without a woman or a girl. That song. I forget who is the originator of that song, but she covers that song on The Voice. And I think that's kind of a full circle moment just with her, because, like, I don't know, just this whole identity change from being looked down on as a woman in the music scene, or just in general, we haven't had, a woman president yet, or, women historically just have not had as many rights as men do, or we just are seen as these lesser people, when in reality, I love that line in that song, but it's a man's world, but it would be nothing without a woman, because it's so true. Women are the ones who birth people, and obviously you can't have a man, you can't have offspring without a man, but the woman is the one that carries it and physically brings it into the world. Women have so much power, and I think it's it's much more represented nowadays than it has been in the past. Just women's rights in general, and their abilities and their ability to be seen by others, I think, has grown a lot, and that's awesome. That's amazing. I love that. Anyway, this song, King, is just, when I first heard it, it was like an anthem. It was so It was loud and proud, and I think it's kind of a perfect representation of her identity change, her name change, she literally, I remember, it was crazy, on Instagram, it was back in 2020, I think it was like near the end of 2020, she literally basically just killed herself off on Instagram. She killed Juliet Sims, and I was just like, I was like, what does this mean? Like, what is that? What's happening? I just remember, I was like, something's coming. New music is definitely coming, but like, what? She like killed herself off. Like, there was flames and whatever, and she said, Juliet Sims is gone, Lilith Czar has risen, or something like that on her Instagram. And I was like, whoa, what does that mean? Like, what does that mean? And then, and then the album came, and like everything, she, changed, she changed everything. She changed her hair. She changed her face a little bit. It looked like she wore, I mean, she's always had kind of the same style, but the way she presented herself was much more powerful and much more, just forceful, I guess, as a woman. I loved that era. I loved that I lived through that, because I love Juliet Sims. I loved her music, her as a person. I love her style, the way that she is. But Lilith coming to the surface and just saying, hey, here I am, like, that was an intense change, an power move, and I loved it. Track 4 is called Anarchy, and oh man, I think this song is most definitely my favorite track on the album. She has always had a powerhouse of a voice, but this song in particular, she has some insane vocals. Like, blah. Like, I don't want to compare it to Demi Lovato, because I think they have different vocals. Like, there's differences, but their energy and their intenseness, their force is kind of similar to Demi. But there's a line in the song that says, I won't curse, but it says, F your authority, I'll make my own. And that just is such a power statement. Like, again, going back to men and fighting against the power and, standing up for yourself and being someone to take charge and literally not only take the reins of your own life, but just F everything else. And I am taking my life into my hands. I'm going to make my own authority. If you're not going to give me authority as a woman and power, I'm going to do it myself, That is a very literal sense, but a lot of this album is very, I don't know. She's talked about a lot of things in her podcasts and interviews and whatnot. It's been a while since I've listened to all of them and gotten those viewpoints, but yeah, Anarchy has some insane vocals, like especially the chorus, and especially the ending chorus, where there's vocal layers on top, where she's just kind of belting out and yelling. Wow, it's hard to reach. Like, I've tried. I sometimes try to sing that song like full out, and it's really hard. But that's because she's been singing her whole life, and she's been training, and she has, a lot more better techniques than I do. So it makes sense that she can sing it well, but it's insane. I love that song. Moving on. Track 5 is called 100 Little Deaths. This track was a single for a while. I feel like it was out for at least a year, I think. Probably longer than that, because I feel like the transition from Juliet Sims to Lilith Czar took a while to happen, especially with COVID, because it kind of happened around that time. As I mentioned earlier, there was a poem just kind of spoken that was taken out for this album version. It was on the single version. She released it. When she released it, just like as Juliet Sims, there was a little poem at the beginning of the song that is no longer there. I believe you can still find it on YouTube, but it's not on I don't think it's on streaming platforms like that version of the song. But the intro poem goes like, water cold and deep, hold me fast that I may sleep. Death with you is hardly more than the little deaths before. Something like that. I probably totally butchered it. I don't know why she took that out for the album. Maybe it just didn't fit with the vibe. Maybe she was like, oh, I already have a poem at the beginning of the album. I'm not going to put another one in. I liked the poem in the single version. Maybe it's just because I'm used to it. Like when the album version comes on of 100 Little Deaths, and it's just like this droning background sound that I'm like thinking she's gonna start talking, and then she never does, and then like the sirens come in and like the song starts. Maybe I'm just used to the poem version, but I preferred it with the poem. Maybe that's because I've listened to it a million times with it, but I don't know why she took it out, but it does sound cool, I guess, with just the sounds in the background. My thing is almost like I think it would have sounded cooler had she taken out the poem part completely with the background noise, like not just the voice part, but taking out that whole chunk of audio, and then just began the song with the sirens that go, and then the drums go gong gong. Like, I think that would have been cool. I think on the back of Anarchy, it actually would have sounded cool because there are kind of sirens in the back, or at the end of Anarchy. There are like police and like, you know, anarchy, like in the streets or whatever. You hear these background sounds. I think it would have been cool to begin 100 Little Deaths, the track just right after, with that blaring siren and then the gong gong just right into the song. That would have sounded cool. That's just my opinion, but... Oh, another thing about that track, the lyrics kind of remind me of a song called Sick Little Suicide by the Matches. Not for any... for a particular reason. Just because in Sick Little Suicide it talks about like all these things that like people do to themselves that like slowly kill them. Like he mentions alcohol, he mentions cigarettes, a lot of other things. But just like that concept of like killing ourselves slowly and consistently. In her song, she says 100 little deaths. And just that concept, I really like that concept of, you know, just killing ourselves so that we can be reborn throughout our lives, shedding your old self and then changing into this new person, which is exactly what she did with going from Juliet Sims to Lilith Czar. I think that whole concept is phenomenal. It's interesting that came out as a single before the album dropped. I don't know if she obviously thought about being Lilith Czar for a while before, you know, like announcing it to the world, because that's a huge change and that's a lot of self-image and thinking and a lot of things to go through personally to, you know, be comfortable doing that. But I think I would love to know the timeline of when she wrote this song and if she knew that she was going to become Lilith Czar as she was writing it or before, or if she thought about it after. I have no idea. That the concept of that song also relating to King is just relating to Lilith in general. It's just a good like concept for the album of just being reborn. And that's also what Lilith, you know, before Eve, kind of the whole concept with her also ties into. So I think that was cool that she did that. Track 6 is called Lola. This one's a more mellow track. It's kind of more of a ballad, I guess. I cannot tell you what exactly it's about, but she mentions things from that I know from like her life, like as like growing up, like younger. She says grew up on Spiders from Mars, which I believe is a Bowie album or a song or something. I know she loves David Bowie. Yeah, I don't know who Lola is, if that's like a real person or if she just like conjured that up for the song, or if it sounds like she's talking about like going back to childhood and kind of almost holding on to the memories of who she was when she was younger and how she grew up. You know, like kind of like not forgetting her roots type of a thing. Like, yes, she's changing her identity and she's becoming this new thing. But in this Lola song, she's like, Lola, take me back home. And talks a lot about just things that related to her life back then, I guess, from what I grasp. Yeah, I think that's it's right in the middle of the album. It's track 6 out of 12. And it's mellower, and I think it's just kind of a cool callback to who she was. That's just the way that I take it. I don't know what exactly it's about, but I like that song. It's one of my favorites. Track 7 is Edge of 17. It's a cover by Stevie Nicks that she did. I know she loves Stevie Nicks, so I thought that this was like a really cool, like I admire her paying homage to like a fellow female singer in which she admires. That was pretty cool. I think it would have been even way cooler. She probably thought probably tried to get Stevie Nicks to like sing it with her. It would have been sick. But just her alone, she totally did the song justice. I actually like it more than the original. And I had heard the original growing up, you know, like in School of Rock, I believe it plays. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, School of Rock. The principal and Jack Black, they go to the bar or whatever, and that song is playing. So, I mean, I had known it from that movie and just from the radio growing up. So I had listened to the song several times. But I really love Lilith's version. Her voice, it sounds pretty normal. Like, I mean, it sounds pretty adjacent to the original one. There's not much that's like changed or like overtly like different than the original. Just mostly just hurt the fact that it's Lilith singing and not Stevie Nicks. But I really love how she covered it and the vibe. I think it fits kind of really perfectly into the tone of the album and like sonically, like how everything sounds. I think the way that they covered it just meshes really well with all the instrumentation of all the other tracks. Track 8 is called Bad Love, and I believe this one is also a single. How many singles did she have? Because she had a few under Juliet Sims. It was Bad Love and 100 Little Deaths that were like released as Juliet Sims, and then I believe King was a Lilith single, and maybe Lola, maybe not at all. I don't remember. I don't remember. I should look that up. But yeah, Bad Love is definitely, I mean, it's definitely more conceptually explicit song, i.e. sexual stuff, which, you know, it is what it is. I can only assume that it's written about her husband, Andy Biersack, sorry. Either way, it's his stage name. From Black Veil Brides. If it was about anyone else, I'm not judging, but anyway, I don't really have anything to say specifically about this song, other than I enjoyed it when it was released. It's a good song. It kind of gives me like Halloween vibes, like the sounds in the background. I don't know if that's just like because it's October and it's literally like Halloween in a couple weeks, and that's just like the mindset that I'm in right now, but it gives me like spooky, just like the sounds. I don't know, you just have to like listen to it and you can just hear there are sounds in the back that gives me like ghouly vibes, which I really love. I think it kind of fits with the vibe of the album in this hard rock, like aggressive feel. But yeah, that's all I really got to say on that one. That one doesn't really stick out to me that much. Track 9 is called In My Head, and I love at the beginning she like sings. She sings, but it's more like talking. She like sings on key, in tune, but also it's not like rapping, but she like sings. Anyway, Lilith does that in this song, and I really love it. The whole vibe of the song, message-wise, I get is that ourselves are our own, like we are our own worst critics. In my head is what she says. Like, I love the double entendre, and when she says, no one F's me like myself, one, you can take that in an explicit way, in a literal way, but it also works as no one is more harsh, no one judges me more, no one, messes me up more than myself in my own head. And I think that that's such a powerful message, and it's something we all go through. Everyone has their own demons and their own things that they are dealing with, and we all think that we can all be better, like personally. What I'm trying to say is in our heads, it's kind of the darkest place sometimes, because we think that everyone's looking in on us and just judging us. And something Kellen Capener said in an interview, he mentioned not caring about what other people think, and in it he kind of said let me find it, this is gonna bug me if I don't.
Be a good human being first. Don't worry about other people are gonna think. The other thing is too, people with, if all these people have the same idea, and those people that aren't really, very, attention is directed more towards their own insecurities than towards you. So if you have that idea, that's true, then, it makes it a lot easier for yourself and help other people.
Yeah, just that concept of everyone has everyone has the things they're dealing with. If you think that everyone's looking at you in a certain way, chances are that's not how it is. Our brains always go to the worst thing. possible for some reason. In the song, she says, "In my head, it's like a murder scene, a self-inflicted lobotomy." I love the way she stated that, because sometimes it's like we just tear ourselves apart when there's no reason to. Like, nobody else is, like, viewing us like that, so, like, why are we putting ourselves down so much, you know? I don't know. Kind of went off on a tangent there on that, but that's just kind of my thoughts on it. There's a lot that we put ourselves through, and sometimes we just need to be nicer to ourselves. Sometimes we just live in our heads, and it's not a very safe or fun place sometimes, and I think that's kind of what this song is talking about in some ways. Track 10 is called Unholy. I honestly don't have a whole lot to say about this song. Not for any reason in particular, it just never really stuck out to me, lyrically or musically. It's just kind of just another track. I wish I had, like, more to say about it, but, like, I genuinely just... It's a good song. Like, I'm not saying it's bad. Like, it's a good song. It just didn't really do anything for me with anything specific. So, we're just going to move on to the next track. Track 11 is called Burn With Me. And this song, when I first heard it, immediately I was like, it sent me back to Automatic Love Letter. Like, the vibe of it just sounds like that band, which is her band. And I loved it. I really love this song. I really love the guitars at the beginning, and her voice is just brighter on the song. There's less of, like, this dark undertone that the rest of the album kind of carries. This song kind of is brighter and just has this, I don't know, the vibe just has this callback to, like, her younger self and her old music, which I really, really love, because it connects with her. Again, either with the Lola track or just in general, the whole theme and concept of the album, created from filth and dust, just, you know, being completely reborn into this new person. I don't know if she did this on purpose. Like, I don't know if I'm the only person that, like, thinks Burn With Me sounds like an Automatic Love Letter song, or if she realizes that, or if I just know Automatic Love Letters sound enough to be like, oh, that kind of sounds like that. But I love it. If that was intended, that I caught it. If it wasn't, it's a cool thing nonetheless to be related to, I think. I can't really recall any of the lyrics at the moment. I wish I had them pulled up. But yeah, just the whole vibe of it just really reminds me of that band. And it's just like so cool that if she intended to do that she actually put it in and made a song that sounds similar to her old stuff. Because personally, I miss it. I miss that band and the vibe of that genre of music in that era of her voice, and, you know, just that era of her music in general. Not just her voice. Her voice hasn't changed that much. And so it's just a very cool thing. If she did that on purpose, like, way to go. That's awesome. I love it. If not, then there's a good compliment for you. Track 12 is called Diamonds to Dust. It's an acoustic track, and there's, like, an orchestra and a piano kind of in the background, and it kind of ends the whole album on just this very mellow note. It's not rocky at all. It's just very somber and just slower. I don't really have any thoughts lyric-wise, but I like that she incorporated this dust again into the, like, at the end, or at least just, like, in general in the album, because the album's called Created from Filth and Dust. And Diamonds to Dust, not only is the word dust the same, but, like, I don't know, just, like, thinking about that concept, like, turning diamonds, like a diamond, and just breaking it down into dust. It's that concept of taking something so beautiful and just obliterating it. Oh my gosh. Huh. That's exactly what she did. She took Juliet Sims and she just cast herself away into hell, in how she visually put it when she went about changing her identity to the world and created this new image from that dust. That's beautiful. What a power move. That's just the way that I had an epiphany of. I don't know if that's... I mean, it's definitely related. she took this diamond of herself and she, not to say that she's not a diamond anymore, because she totally is. I think she shines even brighter as an artist, as Lilith, than Juliet Sims. I think she went through a lot, and if you go back in her discography, there's a lot of different sounds and a lot of different vibes, and there wasn't ever one, like, main version of herself. There was kind of a lot of different sounds, and this one album, as Lilith, sounds cohesive and the same, and just is such an identifier. And I think hearing some of the new tracks, I mean, we haven't heard anything yet, but just through Instagram, I've heard these new, snippets of things she's doing in the studio, and it sounds pretty similar. This rocky vibe and the power of her voice, it sounds pretty similar to this Created from Filth and Dust album. So, I don't know, I think she found her voice, her vibe, obviously her identity. She found something so much more as Lilith, I think, than Juliet ever kind of held. And not to, beat down on Juliet, because I love her. She's amazing. I don't know. I think she just kind of found herself more growing up now and being this Lilith Czar. Turning diamonds to dust. Just grinding herself down to the dust of the earth and then rising up. I'm surprised she didn't say anything about a phoenix. Maybe that's because she already has a song about a phoenix from her Juliet Sims era. I don't know. I feel like it would be fitting. But again, she didn't. This is Lilith, though. I don't know if that is applicable with the way that she was created. Mythologically, I mean, not Lilith Czar specifically, but Lilith as in Eve. Yeah, I don't know the correlation with that, but yeah, that's all 12 tracks. Personally, I really, really love this album. I love her journey. I love the concept, and I love her story and the way that she presented it in this package of this album. And I think it came at a really cool time after COVID, when everybody was questioning themselves and questioning their lives and didn't know what the future held. And it came right after that, and it was just perfect timing. If I were to rate this album, it would definitely be high. I would probably, it's at least an 8. That's what I said on the last one, but I should get a real scale because I think that would benefit my ratings. But just off the top of my head, I would give it an 8.8. I don't even know. Yeah, it's just a perfect representation of her, and I really love her vocals especially. Again, I said in the beginning, she's my favorite female vocalist of all time. She has a lot to love with the way that she is, so this album was kind of a huge breakout, vocal-wise too, I think. Not just image-wise, but Created from Filth and Dust by Lilith Czar. Solid album. Solid female. Solid music. That's all for this episode. We'll catch you next week. And next week, I should be having a co-host. So that'll be cool. We'll get some new voices in here, some new feedback, because talking to myself on here is kind of weird sometimes. It actually feels kind of cool. I think it's kind of therapeutic to just get my thoughts out about something personally and just individually. But next week, I'm pretty sure I'm excited to have somebody else. I don't know exactly who it will be yet, but I got a few options, so stay tuned for that. We'll see you next week.